Welcome to an overview of the PUBG Dev Challenge for Overwolf 2019. Now, I'm sure many of you have seen recently in the game PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds a link on the left hand side under News and Events, simply stating develop PUBG apps, win prizes. Now, clicking that link will take you to this page. This is simply a collaboration between the PUBG developers and the developers of the Overwolf platform. And they've basically put a little contest for you together. So if you can develop an application for the Overwolf platform, you can win some fantastic things such as $15,000 and amazing gaming gear. Now, this is going to be a little bit biased to developers. Obviously, if you don't have much of a development background or any at all, you will find this contest quite difficult. So I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just going to state that for the time scale that you have, you've got a lot to learn. So just be mindful of that. So again, not trying to discourage anyone. I will try and put as much content and as useful content into a couple of videos for you if you want to get going. So if you, for instance, ever wanted to develop an application like this, hopefully we should be able to get you off the ground. Now, to get going, what you're going to need to do, obviously, first is sign up. And now the sign up process has a little bit of back and forth. And what I mean by that is that you simply need to obviously start by clicking this sign up process. Then you need to fill in your email address, first name, last name, and agree to the terms and conditions of the contest. This will then result in an email from the Overwolf platform team responding to you to simply provide them with your username for the Overwolf platform as well as your idea for this challenge. Once you have submitted that back to them, they will then confirm if you are eligible as well as usually a request to know what your Discord name is. Now, you don't have to provide this, but I would advise you join the Discord so you can get the sort of the depth and breadth of knowledge that the existing entries are currently working with. Now, for instance, there's been quite a few challenges, should I say, around obviously some people getting going, and a lot of the information you may require can come from this Discord room, so I would advise you sign up for it. Now, the challenge is essentially going to be combining the PUBG API with the Overwolf API. So it's going to be a collaboration of the two APIs. You don't have to use the PUBG API, but there is a requirement that you do develop a Overwolf application, which obviously in turn is going to use the Overwolf API. So there is a requirement there. But if you are going to use the PUBG API, you're going to get this great data set that you can work with if you want to do a statistical based application or anything around that. Now, obviously, you know, the application that you decide you're going to do is going to be up to you. There is a little benefit if you develop a second screen application. And what I mean by this is Intel are going to provide a high-end NUC for the best implementation of second screen features. So that's just something to be mindful of. Every successful applicant into this contest as well will also receive an exclusive challenge hoodie. Now, for a successful applicant, what I simply mean by that is you need to have completed an application and submitted it to be eligible, if I'm correct. Now, this is just from what I've read, so if you need clarification about this, please contact one of the Overwolf team, and I'm sure they will be able to confirm whether I am correct or not. Okay, so let's just take a quick look first at what we need to do in regards to the PUBG API. Now, the first thing you're going to need is an API key. To request an API key, or to basically create an API key, you are going to need to go to the documentation.playerunknownbattlegrounds.com and then simply click on the top right hand corner which states My Apps. From there, you just need to sign up. Once signed up, you should then be able to request a key. Now, for me, to save me a lot of hassle, if I click that link, it will basically show you my API key, so I'm not going to do that. Once you have your API key, you simply just need to specify it as part of your header, which is outlined in the making requests. So if you specify authorization bearer, your API key, you should then be able to make these requests. There's examples in Shell, Java, Python, Go, and so forth. If you need examples in, for instance, Postman, so you can mock this, I could provide them if you contact me on the Discord channel. So there is tons and tons of support for this. You can find out loads of information from the PUBG API. I won't go into too much depth, such as player information, stats, the shards. If you're ever curious about platform just simply denotes things like, are you on Steam, PSN, so forth. You can also find out seasonal stats of players, lifetime stats of players, match information. So, for instance, when you make a request to the player or the player endpoints, it'll tell you recently played matches. You can then extract more information from those matches. Who did you kill? Who killed you? What items were you using? Now, if you want to find out, for instance, more specific things about like the items, attachments, so forth, you will need to go into what's known as the telemetry data. Now, to find a link for the telemetry data of a match, you need to make a request first to the match API, and as part of that, you should be able to find the telemetry data. It's not actually... Is it actually in this page? Not that I can see, but it is in that request. You can also find out things such as leaderboards in regards to game modes, tournaments, and so forth. Plus, there is loads of samples that you can see here. Now, there is information about the telemetry data here, so that should give you full breakdown. And there is also various other bits and pieces on this, but that's pretty much what I'll go into in regarding the PUBG API. Now let's have a little bit of a jump over to the Overwolf API. Sorry, I keep getting that confused. Now, I'm going to start you first with this page, which is creating your first app. Now, the first thing you're going to need to do is get yourself a copy of the developer's version of Overwolf. This will look something like this. Let me just open it up. Sorry, I do not know how to use a computer. So let's just open to game summary. Right. Okay, so let's just go to the home page. Now, basically, when you have the Overwolf application running. Sorry, this is just a update of my game information. This is like the dev version, and I'm still not amazing at using it. So this is what I was actually trying to get to, is the App Store. So this is the first thing you're probably going to see when you start the application. You'll notice on the left-hand side that you actually have a little toolbar that you can use when the application itself is minimized or closed or so forth, which you can access basically at all times. For you to essentially to get going with this, you're going to need to have access to the settings and the support. Now, under this, you have this developer options. This is going to be where we can deploy our applications once we have them working. You simply need to go into developer options, and then you can manage the applications that you have. Now, to get you off the ground, there is a PUBG developer challenge sample. Now, I've actually forked this sample, and the reason I forked this sample is that I can show you just a very simple way on how to access just the simple events, the game info, and so forth. So to access that, you just need to go to github.com/willitscale. Then on there, you should see under my repositories a PUBG Dev Challenge samples. Now within there, it's just the standard version of the Overwolf PUBG Dev Challenge samples, and all I've done is make a few alterations to the essentially the game events. I think it's the game events provider, which basically just dumps out all the game events constantly to a console, so you can just get an idea of what's going on behind the scenes. Now, there's a couple of tools that you might need for this, which is, now this is personal preference. I use a application called Visual Studio Code. For those of you who may or may not know this, it's something I use quite often when I'm using things such as Docker and Solidity and so forth, which will look something like this. It's just a basic structure of your file system and a nice clean IDE which will allow you to develop your JavaScript, your HTML, your CSS and everything for the application that you'll be working on. Obviously, if you're going into a little bit more detail with this application, like you were doing a C or C++ library, you would probably need something like Visual Studio or something like that, which is slightly different from Visual Studio Code. But I'm not going to go into that. For other things as well, you're also going to need the NodeJS. Now, again, this isn't a requirement. This isn't a requirement because the NodeJS is more for people who are going to package things and deploy them using tools such as Node Package Manager for including the things you require, Grunt for running them. I think in the examples I use Gulp, type scripting, and so forth, but that's very specific to your application. Obviously, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you choose as long as it complies with the standard JavaScript, HTML, CSS sort of platform. And finally, you are basically going to need obviously the game, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, to do a lot of this debugging. Now, basically with what I have already here, now I already have the game, my little application checked out. All I did was load unpacked extension, specified the path where my application is, and in this case, from what I've shown you, you just go to the file that I've let's just show you a little bit easier. So if you check out this application, you can do clone or download. Just simply hit the download link, extract it, navigate your way to the directory, especially if you're not big or au fait with Git. Go to load unpacked extension. Now mine is just simply located in my documents, GitHub, PUBG dev challenge samples, and then Overwolf native sample. That's just native JavaScript. I think it's ES5 or ES6. I'm not 100% sure. I've not seen any ES6 in it. And then you just basically select the folder and it will appear here, and then you should be able to run it. Now, there is a catch-22 with this. If you have not been approved as a developer, this will not work. You will basically get a prompt here to say that you are not a developer and so forth. So once you are at that developer stage, you can then start playing with this. I will show you very briefly just an overview of what this looks like. So I've got the game PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds here. I've got my application running in the background, as you can see here. And I'm just going to start the game and show you what the events look like. Now, I know you're seeing here this, this connection to a WebSocket. To actually get this, you can simply click on one of the windows. So for instance, if you were to click background, it would open a new tab here, and this is the Overwolf sort of implementation of Chrome, if I'm correct. They've just used the Chromium sort of open source to actually build this. You can make things a little bit easier because this will basically pop up in games and so forth, which might infuriate you. But I'm not the biggest fan of it personally. Not saying it's not a great tool. I just prefer having it open in Chrome. So if you just take the URL that opens to, which will look something like this, go to it in Chrome, you should then be able to access all of the application as you would normally. You can modify sources and so forth, and then just be able to interact with the general components. Now let's have a look at what kind of things are going to be coming out of this. Now I'm basically just capturing all events that should be coming out of this application. So let's just start by entering a game. Hopefully this shouldn't take too long to join, but once I have joined, you should be able to see just some basic stuff going. Now, I'll close some of this so you can just see what I'm actually capturing. Now, this is mostly done in, like I said, the game events provider. So if you go to OW native script, sample scripts services, you will notice this GEP service. And what I've done is I've added all the different types of events that can be captured, and I've created a, well, this was already pre-existing. This is mostly down to a modification. I've created a secondary updater for game info, and hopefully we should be seeing something. We are not seeing anything. It's probably because I'm listening to the wrong thing. If I open this up though, this should hopefully be capturing some stuff for us. Let's just see. Okay, so this is actually capturing stuff. As you can see, someone has joined the match, and now we have an update. As you can see, this keeps overlaying my current screen, which is why I prefer having it in Chrome. The only problem is you can't really copy and paste this that well. So what you have to do is pretty much just type out the, I think it's a session ID or something. It looks like hexadecimal. So in this case, it's 51DC 500E567CC25 ED8353 F0B2340 E2B3. Now if I've done that right, there we go. I should be able to access this in a browser. That means I can close these and there won't be an overlay in the game. Now you're going to see lots of stuff coming through this. Most of it is, in this case, is updates to the roster. So you can see people joining, people leaving and so forth. And then you'll see certain game events changing. Now at the moment we're in what's known as the Airfield. So now we're in the plane. You'll notice there's an extra event. So you can see I'm in there, that's Stephen Mage. We're getting more than just match info now, we're getting game information. You can see we've got an aircraft. I should actually turn that off for a second. You can see that our location is changing constantly. Now if you're curious what these values are representing, I've done a little bit of an update for you. So X is east to west, Y is north to south, Z is height, and that is basically it. So the second I leave a plane, you should see events coming out that has basically stated that I've left a plane. Now, which I think is just called free fall. But unfortunately, there isn't an event that basically dictates when a player has landed. You can, if you're if you want to be clever enough, you can probably figure it out by the height of the position in the map that you have landed on. So if I jump back to this a second, somewhere here, I should have probably had all these already expanded. Let me just make a quick change to this application a second. Go into script services, GP, and then just wrap this in JSON. JSON.string fi. So you should be able to see a raw event, and I'll do the same for the one below too. That's going to use a different name, isn't it? So if I clear that, now we should basically be seeing player updates coming through like that. So this is just all in JSON. So if you want to have a little bit of a play with it, like I said, it's all very simple sort of JavaScript HTML stuff. You can see people getting killed. So you can see a player B0RZ has no kills, and out true just simply means that player is dead. Anytime, for instance, I make a headshot, I shoot a weapon, or actually, I think it doesn't register when you shoot a weapon, it only registers when you have damaged another player. It will show you information about that. It will show you information about a player being killed and so forth. Now, I'm not going to show you through a full game being played, and I'm just going to basically kind of leave it there in regards to that. I'm sure my team probably getting quite infuriated with me, the fact that I'm just not really paying too much attention. Don't worry, I'm going to cut this video short soon, and I'm then going to go help them out, so I'm not too much of a bit of a, not going to say toxic player, but a useless player. But that is in essence what essentially this contest is, what the kind of tools you're going to need, what you're going to need to do, what the sort of things that you will get from the game and the API when you interact with them. If I get quite a lot of feedback from this, what I will do then is then expand this a little bit further, by showing you a little bit more, such as the API integration with the PUBG platform, a bit more of the API integration with the Overwolf platform. There is some great API documents, such as the one giving you the list of events and so forth that come in and out, which can come in and out of the platform, such as being able to make interactions to the game. So for instance, I can make a quick call to it there, find out some information about what the current game state. So in this case, I'm calling Overwolf Games Events Game Info. It's telling me that my current state is game free fly, which still thinks that I'm falling out of a plane. Like I said, there is a bit of a caveat to when you're using things such as that. It won't show you anything like picking up items or picking up weapons or anything like that. As you can see here, it's telling me more that I'm moving around, people are leaving the game, people are getting killed and so forth. It will tell me, like I say, my headshots, the damage I'm doing to people. Weirdly enough, it doesn't tell you who you've killed. It does tell you who's killed you, which is a bit of an interesting one. I think I'd much prefer to know who I've killed rather than the people killing me. But either way, that is that's pretty much this contest in a nutshell. Now, like I say, I will cut it there. If you do have any more questions, information, so forth, leave them in the comments box down below. If you would like to get involved, like I said, I will leave a link to the contest page in the description box down below. Remember, there are some fantastic things that you can win with this contest. If you do need that help and support, there is a link for the Discord server, which I am a member of, and you should be able to contact either myself or one of the other members. If you are a member of the challenge, you will be obviously invited to a little special group known as PUBG Dev Challenge Participation or Participants, and then you would have obviously the same sort of level of being able to interact with the game, the Overwolf devs. There is no ability to contact the PUBG devs via the Discord channel. If you contact one of the Overwolf devs for anything critical, I'm sure that they could probably relay a question. I couldn't guarantee the response rate of that, but either way, I hope that's been enough information for everyone today. I'm going to cut the video short there, but until next time, I hope you found this useful, and I'll see you around.